think we have I like this pairing.
I thought it
The
was a
whole
really cool one. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. For those of you, I guess it when they see us say this, they will have seen like the intro already. But we're doing Nas's Ultra Black. That's from King's Disease. Which one?
One
It's from one.
first.
Okay. It's from KD1 and Brown Sugar by the Rolling Stones, which has always this is my confession for the evening, or one of this pairing's um going to create lots of confessions probably, but the one that I'm gonna start with is that Brown Sugar has always been one of my favorite Rolling Stone songs. Like I love lots of Rolling Stone songs, but I've always loved this one particularly. But tonight, when I was preparing for this episode, is the first time I sat down and read the lyrics to it. First time. And
What do you love about the song then? What did you love about the
the
song?
groove, man, the groove. This is one of the best grooves of any Rolling Stone song,
Okay.
to me. It just and it's one of my notes is there. It feels like it could be a James Brown song. Like it's got that kind of groove to it. Um, and we'll talk more about that later. But like the verses are viewed through our 2022 lens are pretty problematic. Um,
That's the thing about it is I don't think that they are. But I
Tell
think
me about that.
well, I mean we can talk about that, but I mean I want you to finish what you were saying.
That was the whole thought. I mean, there are more parts to that because I mean, what I was going to say, I guess we can start here, is my impression is that Mick Jagger means them as a compliment. I don't think we hear them in 2022 as a compliment, but I do think he means them in a 1960s British man's way. Like, I mean, he famously would have sex with anyone. Like that's a Mick Jagger like part of his legend. So I think he means it. For those of you who don't know the lyrics, though, I mean, there are lots of things in there about. I bet your mama was a tent show queen, like a prostitute or a like a burlesque show, I guess, as you would say.
Mhm.
Let's see. And then there's the hook is brown sugar. How come you taste so good? Like, I mean, he's obviously talking about sexual relations with somebody with darker skin than him. But Gold Coast slave ship bound for cotton fields, sold in the market down in New Orleans. Scarred old slaver knows he's doing all right here and whip the women just around midnight. Like there's some of that going on, but there's a he also alternates in the chorus just like how come you taste so good just like a black girl should and just like a young girl should. So there's some of the age thing too in here. So there's lots of things that if you wanted to dig into the problematic nature of some of these lyrics, there's a lot of fodder for you, I think.
What if I told you I thought most of the fodder was misstated and um this is quite frankly for a group whose although infectious grooves and melodies are rather simplistic and repetitive,
Hmm.
this is one of their more challenging and more lyrical songs
Yeah.
because of the format and the metaphorical. God, I guess is it metaphorical allegories? Can that be? Is that like is
Yeah.
that possible?
An allegory is a kind of metaphor. Yeah.
Right. So yes. So these. So the allegory that's being presented here as a whole,
Hmm.
I guess, is one that has many double entendres in it. And so I say that to submit to you is that although I hear in 2022 what would cause a problem and a stir about it, and
Hmm.
we'll talk about those things. What I mostly hear is that it's twofold. First of all, on the side of things of it being 2020 and beyond, well, most people are stupid and you can't say shit anymore. And I'm just going to say it just like that because it's true. Now, on the back end of that, I happen to be intelligent and artistically and creatively inclined. And so I'm going to look at it through a multitude of lenses. And when I look at it through the multitudes of the lenses, although some of the rhetoric is problematic, as somebody who knows some of the things that I know, it's like, oh, well, we could be talking about cooking heroin too.
It could be.
And yes, it's no, definitely. And that's what I mean. Could definitely be talking about having sex with a woman, a black woman, or definitely talking about abusing a drug. But to try to just I guess classify it
Hmm.
because they're a white male group and a British white male group, to just try to kind of box this in as some sort of colonizing behavior
Hmm.
musically is, I think, a little trite.
Okay.
And um, given the band members' personal preferences, because of not having any,
Right.
you know, just if you know some of these things. So what I really hear more than anything is actually one of their more well-written songs. Actually, like you
Yeah.
like the groove. I actually
Yeah.
think this is one of the few songs that they got depth. And I thought enough about it that I actually went and took some notes and did some serious research about this song today.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of pull up my notes,
Do that
if I
for
may.
sure.
That's why I was asking if you could still see me, because I wanted to
Yeah.
pull up my notes. This is obviously, first of all, just on its face value, it's a song about the transatlantic slave trade
Mm.
and rape and the psychological ramifications and, quite frankly, the sadistic nature of slave masters
Hmm.
psychologically and sexually towards people who were being held captive by them.
Yeah.
So that's on its face value. Now, it has been said that the inspiration from this song came from a woman by the name of Claudia Lanier. Have you ever heard of Claudia
Mm-mm.
Lanier?
No.
Claudia Lanier is one of the Ikettes from Ike and Tina Turner's band.
I do know them, obviously.
Now, the Rolling Stones and the Ike and Tina Turner toured together in 1969, which is coincidentally enough when this song got written, made, recorded.
Hmm. It was released in 1971 on Sticky Fingers, but yeah.
Now, I'm going to get to that in a second because I have notes about that as
Yeah, for
well.
sure.
Now, are you familiar with the David Bowie song, Lady Grinning Soul?
What was it called?
Lady Grinning Soul.
No.
David Bowie wrote a song called Lady Grinning Soul, and that song is about Claudia Lanier as well. So when this episode is over, I'm going to go research Claudia Lanier
Yeah, for
because
sure. It
I,
when you started this, I'm going to take back a little bit of what I said about James Brown. This sounds like a Tina Turner song. Like it's got that kind of drive to it too.
yes. So this is what I mean. Well, I don't know who the hell Claudia is or was, Andrew, but I affect David Bowie and
Hmm.
Mick Jagger and get them to write songs about you. Oh, that ain't got nothing to do with the color of your skin. That's just
No.
buying shit. You feel what I'm saying,
Yep.
Andrew?
For sure. For sure.
Feeling what I'm saying. Now, also too, and this is what I mean about giving Mick Jagger some credence. Now, also too, Mick Jagger had a relationship with a lady named Marsha Hunt.
Hmm. Mick Jagger had a relationship with lots and lots of ladies, but yes, yes, continue.
Absolutely. This relationship was hidden for a
Mm.
time, but resulted in a daughter named Karis. Marsha Hunt is a woman of color. Okay, so
That
you know,
I was not familiar with that piece of information, but I'm 0% surprised.
right. So I find it very, very hard to believe that the man who wrote this lyric, that is literally conceiving a child of color, is
Yeah.
coming from a colonizing perspective.
No.
You know, this is going
I
on.
really truly do think he means it as a celebration. I do.
I don't know if he means it as a celebration. I think he means it as an explanation.
Okay.
And
That makes sense.
and I think because the source is coming from, quite frankly, a privileged, well-to-do white male, that's the
Mhm.
part of it that doesn't sit well.
Yeah.
Because if you juxtapose it to the other song that we're covering, oh well, Nas talks about these things all the time, and we love him
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
it.
That was one of my notes actually. Would this song be as problematic if it was a James Brown song? Like if James Brown was singing these words, would it be a problem?
Fuck no, James Brown got
Exactly,
shit.
right.
To do. Like
Exactly.
fuck, not even in a second. We'd be
Right.
like, yeah, fight the power, right? So and this is what I mean. So, and this is, this is why I like the Rolling Stones too. When
Hmm.
Mick's letting you know that it's down, when they're talking about the whipping
Hmm.
and sugar, like, well, you whip heroin when you cook it in the spoon, you
Mm.
know, like you whisk it, and
Okay.
when in a spoon it turns brown. Like, heroin can take on different colors. It can be like grayish or it can be black. But when it's cooked in a spoon, it turns brown. Now, these motherfuckers like to party, Andrew.
Oh yeah.
You feel
Mick
what I
Jagger is probably the single most notorious partier of all those bands.
Right. So if you're like telling me, well, Mick Jagger's talking about heroin, black women, and the slave trade, I would tell you, no, no, no. He very much is talking about all those things
Hmm.
and not the negative connotation that you would be assuming on any sort of level.
Yeah.
The music guy, the personal taste and
Hmm.
preference guy, the
Yeah.
motherfucker who likes to party. Well, that guy is living on this record. And
Yeah.
that's really what's going on. And I think that's why I like it so much. It's like, well, Mick Jagger and everything that Mick really is living on this record. He is somebody that's socially conscious and aware, even for all
Hmm.
his personal preferences and party taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this has all those things. Now, I'll tell you something else. This song got done in 1969, but it got released in 1971 due to a manager royalties dispute.
Oh,
That's why
okay.
it's so long. So it wasn't even about.
There's a Rolling Stones thing where there's lots of like playlists and like greatest hits albums that are like pre 1969 or pre 1970, and then the stuff that comes after. Yeah, they
Right.
split them up. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the music business actually took a big recording and engineering jump between 69 and 1971, but this recording was so astounding that they still kept the original version.
Mhm.
So the 69 version lived in 71. The original title for the track is Black Pussy.
That is also not surprising.
Right. Now, I believe what's his name? Jerry Wexler, I believe, or
I
one
think
of
that's
those.
right. Yeah,
Yeah. Thought that was too forward of a name for Mick to be using.
probably in 19. Yeah, if
Yeah.
anybody could get away with it, he probably could. But like it's
The word. Right. Now, the album cover for this album that this was released on was designed by Andy Warhol.
yeah, I was about to say Warhol did the cover, right? Yeah.
But this was the first appearance, also, too, of the famous tongue and lips logo, which is,
Hmm. The Rolling
close.
Stones logo, or the one we all most commonly associate with them.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So that was done by John Pash, who was fresh out of the art school in the Royal College Art of London. So they kind
Mhm.
of kept it local. Now, here's the thing about it, too. Now, a song about the slave trade, and quite frankly, about rape, the raping of black women, and on the double entendre side, the use of heroin and the passive aggressive rock star sleeping with black women. Um,
Mhm.
Pepsi and Kahlua have used these for commercial ads.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
it's it's a it's a it's one of those songs that's everywhere.
yeah,
Um,
they had to agree to not play this song in China in 2003, but ended up canceling anyway because they got sick. Although I think that's not totally
they also may have just said, "I'm not doing that." Sorry. Yeah.
like suck it hard. But then finally in 2020 they took it out of their catalog set. And when Mick Jagger was asked why, he pretty much said, "Well, we've been performing the song since 1970," and kind of left it right there. That pretty much said, "We're not trying to kick up no shit this late. We've gotten
Yeah.
50 years out of this record."
And also they have plenty of other good songs. Like it's not like this is their one single hit that everybody's gonna be sad if they don't play. Like they
Right.
have they have others.
So those were the notes that I had on the record just from doing some research about it.
You're teaching me things about it. That's great. I love that. No, it's again,
But that,
it's one of the ones I've always loved, but I've
right.
never really paid attention to what he's saying. Um, as a like a follow up on one of the other things you said too. Um, I assume you know this, but the people watching may not. Um, the Sticky Fingers logo or the Sticky Fingers cover, if you don't know what that is, that's like a man's like crotch, basically, like in tight jeans.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual, at least the vinyl album cover has the zipper actually goes up and down.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
real zipper. So that's a
uh,
collector's item.
yeah, it's and there's not a ton of them anymore, but
Well,
um,
it was a big manufacturing problem. That was in my
yeah.
notes. I just mentioned that. But
Yeah.
yes, that was
It
down that.
but because when you're pressing the thing, it was pressing the zipper into
Right.
the actual record and messing them up, some of them. But yeah, um it's a great song. It's a great song.
Right.
It's I can see why they would stop playing it now. But um
I can too, but that's what I mean. It's one of those things where it's like, so to juxtapose it to the artist that we were talking about, when I'm talking to Nas's, Nas's social person, Taj, the plug. Plug's name is Taj. She's telling me how, Nas is in the editing process of King's Disease 3 is,
Mm.
worried about maybe some of the things that are being said and needing to take them off because of the culture time that we live in. Which I think is funny because, the song that he's caught the most flack for in this trilogy, plus Magic, I call it the 3+1. There's the
Right.
trilogy Magic. Part of the only thing that really caused the stir for him, like I would say, like, controversy, like lyric wise,
Right.
was the line in here when he says, we ultra black, the opposite of Doja Cat, who's obviously real, real big now
Hmm.
and has a big following. So there was some hoopla about that. And, he caught some flack for that, just about her following. And, but she's made some comments and said some things too now,
Yeah.
that prompted that. But, Taj was just telling me that even the process of King's Disease 3, the editing process, he's worried about what he can say. Like, you can't say the things that you used to say. This is a guy whose first verse you hear him on, he tells you when he was 12, he went to hell for snuffing Jesus.
Right.
So he believes in the full freedom of creative
Yeah.
license.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, and that's been stripped down from some of our legendary artists, from the Rolling Stones to Nas, like in terms of even how he was processing the
Hmm.
editing processes of releasing this masterful album he just dropped.
He
So
he did it. He did it. As put one of the lyrics in there. He did it with Hall and Oates too. Um, and I mean, Daryl Hall is, blue-eyed soul white guy, but John Oates is also I looked it up because I wanted to say it correctly. He's half Italian and half Moroccan. But he is darker skinned. But
mhm.
like he looks North African. Like he doesn't
Right, right,
look
right, right.
so he's lighter. And
But he
my
looks
assumption is that was because most of the people that Nas cites in here as like we're going like this, or like Grace Jones and Iman, like people who are like darker skin
well,
tone.
okay. So I think that there is a piece of that that is intentional,
Hmm.
but okay, he is using black people who trigger certain emotions
Hmm.
about the beauty and blackness out of it.
Yeah.
And so
Because
this
both of
is one
those two people I just named were models, for example.
right,
Yeah.
but it's not just their models, it's the way that they're revered in the black community and how it makes us sizzle, how they sizzle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like
Grace Jones and Mick Jagger are friends.
oh, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't see how they could not be,
Yeah.
actually. Right.
Or I've always felt like the Stones, like Zeppelin, we talked about this earlier today, like you can listen to Led Zeppelin and never pay attention to a single word they say because it's about the music and the vocal melody of it. And I don't and I do think the Stones largely, not completely, but a lot of their songs are more about the groove than they are about the actual lyrics themselves. Funnily enough, the two Stone songs we've covered are probably two of their most well-wrought lyrics. This one and You Can't Always Get What You Want are both near the top of their lyrical genius, I guess. But a lot of them are not necessarily driven by their lyrics. How about that? And that's one of the things that the Stones and Zeppelin have in common. That you don't see in a lot of 60s artists. A lot of 60s and 70s are very lyrical.
Well, I think that's also kind of like a timing thing. They came along in a time like people forget. I'm not joking. It's like, well, we're not that far removed. Like the Stones and the Beatles, like right before bands like the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all these other guys and the Isley Brothers on our side. Like right before these bands start forming, it's barbershop quartet and doo
Hmm.
and like Frank Sinatra ass style
Yeah.
stool and a cigarette ass singing. Like, I mean, for real,
Yeah.
right?
No, it is. That's no
So,
whatever.
so flip from like 1955 to like 1965 is probably like the biggest flip in the history of music. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? In terms of how much genres take leaps and bounds and steps in terms of like what the artists actually become. They're part of that. And so
Hmm.
they have elements of the past with them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah. What do you mean by elements of the past? Like, are they coming through in the music? That's,
Like a barbershop quartet and like those styles of making music.
mhm.
Well, your melody and your presence was everything. The lyrics, not so much. Like
Right.
you needed to be a star, Mick Jagger. You
Hmm.
needed to be able to sing melodies. You feel what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Lyrics weren't at the forefront of what they really came up on. It
Yeah.
was about having a good front man who the ladies like
Yeah.
and being able to harmonize and be melodic,
And
musically
you
inclined.
see that with James Brown, and you see that with Stevie Wonder, and you see that
Right,
with Ike and Tina Turner, and you see that with the Isleys, and you see that in all of them too.
right. No, that's what I mean.
That's about the melody, and you see it through, like, all the way back through the ancestors of rock and roll, your Chubby Checkers and your those guys, Buddy Hollies and those guys.
Like like 1958, the Isley Brothers are doing shout. You know, you make me want to shout, kick my hands up and shout, throw my head up and shout. You know what I'm saying?
And then
They
doing
could,
Twist and Shout too, yeah.
right, but by 1972, they're doing stuff like Footsteps in the Dark. They're
Mm.
doing whole metaphorical, like
Whole different deal, yeah.
because well, they don't come from that, but they realize in order to survive, like and adapt, and that's what the
Hmm.
best do: survive and adapt. So it's like no, they exist in both realms, and because of that, they quite frankly, that's why this era of music is so important for the black and the white side, where the fucking music just sounds better
It's
because
so good.
it's so good because well, I mean, listen to what I'm about to say. Well, these motherfuckers had to be good to survive.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like they had
Yeah.
to be, especially for these groups that came from this era that had to transition and watch people like the Beatles and the Isley Brothers songwriting rise, start taking things to different levels. It's the
Yeah.
surviving adaptability of it that made everybody sharper. It's the iron
Yeah.
sharpening iron type of thing.
You also have now 50 or 60 years worth of culling too. Like,
And here's what you have too. Well,
mhm.
you have people who know how to do the simplistic well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
And
So even when the lyrics get more complex, they know how to write it more beautifully
hmm.
than the person that I don't want to say it comes off like some people try too hard,
Hmm.
but there's an effortless to certain types of music. And the Rolling
Yeah.
Stones have it
Yeah.
feels like it.
I mean, and they made a hook out of Brown Sugar, or How Come You Taste So Good.
Right.
And then they have that yeah, 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 woo part at the end too, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just they have they're one of the sing-alongingest bands that you can possibly have, right? I mean, they're one of the best possible ones there. And like I just told you at the beginning of this segment, like I have listened to this song for 30 years probably. Um, and and groove to it and dance to it and jam to it and drove down the road with my window open listening to it and have never not once known what he was saying in the verses. Like, I mean, I mean, Mick obviously does not have the clearest, probably on purpose, like doesn't have the clearest
Mm-hmm.
um enunciations on his lyrics, but
I had to listen
it's
to this in headphones because like just listening to it out in audible speakers because of the age of it too is like, oh
mhm,
no, here. Let me go
yeah.
listen.
I think it's a special record. I do. Like
Mm-hmm.
that one and the whole Sticky Fingers one. We'll have to get into some of the other songs on there too later on, but it's it's one of those records that they released in like 70, 71, 70, like those era. That's I think Exile on Main Street, which is a double album. That's Sticky Fingers. That's Let It Bleed, which is the one that you can't always get what you want. And I think Gimme Shelter is on that one too. I do not know my Rolling Stones discography as well as I know the Beatles ones for sure, but they went on a run like in that late, very end of the 60s, very early 1970s that is one of the great ones, great album runs too.
So
And
Brown
that's parallel with Stevie Wonder and parallel with Led Zeppelin. Like a lot of bands had or
right.
artists had some really, really great runs right at that point.
So that's what I mean about the iron and sharpening the iron
Hmm.
too. I mean, it's like, think about somebody like the Rolling Stones in 1959 being on tour with Ike and Tina Turner in 1960, not 59, 69. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
No, different.
And they would have
Like,
learned a lot by watching them too. Like,
right. But Wild Horses and Brown Sugar got recorded in the same weekend. This is the
Jesus
same.
Christ. That's we
That was
will do. We I've told you. I think we should do a. I know I don't know if you want to get into any R&B stuff at all, but I think we should do Voyage to Atlantis goes with Wild Horses,
yeah,
and
no.
I think that
And You Gotta Move. So all three of those songs pretty much came out of like the same kind of weekend recording session, which is
is absurd. Yeah, I'd forgotten. I think I knew apocryphally, like way back in my brain somewhere, that they had toured with Ike and Tina,
mm,
but that that comparison, that style, that well, I mean, those do fit together. There's a lot of Stone songs that are come from about that time period that sound like they could have been Ike and Tina Turner songs. So they were learning from them as well in that um in that soup, so to speak.
right. So yeah, so they recorded this in Sheffield, Alabama in a 3-day period from December 2nd until the 4th in 1969.
Yeah. They
Glenn
got some
John
Alabama in it too.
Glenn Johns added the horns
Hmm. The
and came
saxophone's great. Yeah.
he added the horns, but he left Jimmy Johnson's mix from Alabama the same and actually called him from England to tell him how great the mixes were.
Hmm.
The thing about that being like an engineer in Sheffield, Alabama, and it's like the Stones engineers calling you from London, like, "Hey, this shit's fucking good, great job."
Hmm. Yeah.
Like that's yeah.
Just throw in a little saxophone solo and we're good. Yeah.
So, but yeah, but great song, brilliant record. They have obviously albums full of them.
Yeah.
So,
And I appreciate the conversation about how you don't feel like the song is really that problematic, just because like Mick is never one that I've never heard him catch any shit about any of that
I
at all
hate to
ever.
I know we've talked about this before. It's one of those eye test and kind of feeling test things for
Hmm.
black people where it's like, no, we kind of know when somebody's like, it's like, oh, I don't know about this motherfucker.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like when, what's his name? Who's South Carolina's former governor? Lindsey,
Lindsey Graham, he's a senator, but yeah.
senator, right. So when Lindsey Graham speaks, it's one of those things where it's like, eh,
Hmm.
oh, damn. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Yeah, Mick don't give you those type of vibes. Who else gives off that? I hate to say it, I'm trying to think of a musician who kind of gives off those types of vibes.
I think you would you there are country musicians that do. Um that I would think that you would probably argue that the members of Leonard Skinner do.
Yeah, I was thinking Conway Twitty.
Hmm. I don't know him personally like that, so I don't like know his personal history. So, but I'm not arguing with you. I just don't know.
Right.
Um,
But that's what I mean. It's just one of those things from the feel and from the vibe.
and
It's
like for example, Johnny Cash, you don't get that vibe from, even though he comes
right.
through it like comes through in the
Right.
1950s
Country,
too.
and he comes off like a country ass white boy too, but he
He
doesn't come off
is,
right.
but
But he doesn't come off like that. There's it's like a comfort thing where it's like
mm,
being around this person makes me uncomfortable and I don't
right.
know why. And usually when a black person is around a white person and the black person feels uncomfortable and they don't know why, the why is usually somewhere rooted in
Mm,
that. And that's what
that
I'm
makes
saying.
sense.
Mick Jagger's never gave off those type of
Mm,
vibes to
no. I mean, I
like
can't say no because I don't know, but like he doesn't
I
strike me as somebody
I'll give
who,
you an example of somebody else who's like British who doesn't give off those vibes. George Michael. You
yeah,
feel what I'm saying?
hmm,
It's like, no, you kind of know. You kind of know.
yeah,
Yeah. So this song is beautiful to me because it's really unapologetically black. He
mm,
even, one of the things, Nas is kind of like, a writer's writer. And, we've talked about that from the context of, how he approaches things.
hmm,
But what he really is stressing in this song is that even if we are flawed in some of our blackness, we're still black and we're still beautiful. It's going to be okay. I'll give you the prime example of that, where he goes, "We going ultra black. My pants pose to sag." You know,
hmm,
he's taking even the things that are negative connotations about our culture and kind of wrapping his arms around it and saying, "Nah, that's okay too. That's just part of your blackness. It's gonna be
Mhm.
all right, you know. And
Yeah.
so even the negative, he's turning it into a positive. It's actually a very, very beautiful message. It's an understated record. Um, Even though it's only been 2 years, the staying power of the record is already there and evident.
Hmm.
And this is the first Hit Boy and Nas pairing. So we can actually thank this song for the run.
Yeah. It feels like it fits with the other ones that I know from later.
Yeah. But this is the start off. This is the jump off of the, quite frankly, like, I mean, definitely as far as the MC is concerned, the greatest late run the MC has ever had. This is
Hmm.
kind of start song too. And so, and this is what I mean, like, lyrics and great lyricism. And this is somebody who obviously is lauded as our foremost lyricist or one
Right.
of, if the foremost lyricist,
Hmm.
is that, sometimes to get the point across, you don't have to overstate your purpose. You just got to give people the food they need. So this song is full of like the food that black people need.
Okay.
We like like think about the double meaning when he's saying we don't fold or crack.
Yeah.
You know, he's making kind of like a little tongue in cheek about how black don't crack. We don't fold or crack.
It
As in,
feels
like,
that's one of my notes actually. I don't want to interrupt you too much, but
okay,
like the it feels like this started with the black don't crack cliche and then he kind of like exploded it out into all these other
yes,
things. Um,
it's in the music. This is what I mean is that when he's giving us the food about what we need, just listen to what he's saying. We don't fold or crack. So he's saying we're not going to succumb to the pressures of the society,
right.
and we're still beautiful. Our skin doesn't crack. Because listen, right after that, occasion we rose to that.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck going postal.
Yeah.
That's why he's saying we don't fold, like we don't go postal. So he's being tongue in cheek again, almost saying fuck going postal. He's almost saying on the backside of that, that's the shit that white people do.
Yep.
We don't
No, that's I absolutely got that without question. Yeah.
right, right. We going ultra black. That's
Hmm.
why he says that fuck going postal, we going ultra black. Like instead of expressing our anger and our frustrations with this systemic and institutionally racist society this way, we're just going to go ultra black.
Hmm.
Listen to what he says. Watching the global change, hop in the coldest range. That's as black as it gets. Because we will sit up here and talk about all the problems that are wrong sometimes, and then we
Hmm.
will go contribute to them immediately. Like think about what he's saying. Watching the global change, hop in the coldest range. Now everybody knows ranges aren't good for the air and not efficient for the economy, fuel wise or anything. You get what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's literally one of the most toxic and inefficient cars. So he's talking about the global climate change, and then he
Hmm.
goes hop in the coldest range.
Yeah. And he's also using the word cold with it too, right? Like,
Hot with cold.
yeah.
Yeah, right. You have the writer is obviously
Hmm.
still existing on
Yeah.
here. And then he does what I like to scold the old school hip hop thing because it's kind of has an old school hip hop feel.
Hmm.
Hit Boy on the beat. This shit's supposed to slap. That's like shouting out the DJ,
Hmm. Yep.
which is also a black thing. That's what I mean. He's hitting certain points and
Yeah.
it's meant to trigger you. Rhythm and blues, pop, rock, the soul, the jazz, to my toes, the tags. How I look being told I'm not supposed to brag.
Mm.
Now, I'm going to tell you something. Like, for me, this is what I mean. He's striking triggers and he's striking chords. As a black man, I've always been told that I was arrogant and that I was cocky. But I
Mm.
know a lot of white men like me, Andrew, and they get called ambitious
Yep.
and, um, and go getters and self starters.
Yep.
But I'm arrogant and I'm cocky, you know?
Hmm.
And so when he says that, this is what I mean. No, he's triggering a lot of different things for a lot of people. Well, that's my trigger on the song is when he says that, you know, and he's giving you enough like black moments and black literary devices that there's almost like a trigger somewhere for the black experience in here everywhere. And that's what's beautiful about their record. Everybody probably has a part of this record if they
Hmm.
listen to it, and that's the part that they relate to.
Yeah.
And women and the models being mentioned are part of that effect to let the women know that they're not out of the trigger.
Yeah.
Grace in tone, but multi that.
Hmm.
Accept where I'm from, accept where I'm at, and don't fight me on it. Emotional stares like I might be wanted. So he's still speaking about the injustices that are going on.
Hmm.
Emotional stares like I might be wanted. Pitch black like the night, I'm ultra black. Sanford and Sons reruns. Jokes are black. Yes, they are. Like you see how you laugh?
Mhm.
The trigger. That's what I'm talking about. What this record
Like
does
like
is
even somebody who looks like me there's moments in there that I kind of laugh at too. The rhythm and
right,
blues, pop rock to soul to jazz. I mean, all of those are originally black music too, right? Like, I mean, which is
but
obviously his point, but like
right,
it's just yeah, there's moments like that that even touch my experience too.
right, and it's meant to. Listen, so he's saying we going ultra black like the Essence Fest. Talk with a mask on, the freshest breath, African black, so caress the flesh. Super fly, the Mac sitting fly in the lap. He went from Africa to pimps and players in two
Hmm.
bars,
Yep.
all part of the black diaspora and experience here for black Americans, though. That's what I mean. Is no,
Yeah.
he's touching everything. He's pretty much saying, if you're one of these boule bougie black people, no, 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 we're going ultra black for you. But if you one of these player ass niggas that just like Superfly in the Mac and chilling in the Cadillac, we're going ultra black for you too.
Hmm.
Nobody's out of this ultra blackness. It's an all inclusive song.
Yep.
It's a black empowerment song, and I know you've heard me talk. King's Disease 3
Yep.
is a black empowerment album. But the black empowerment been going on with Nas, like before
Yep.
the King's Disease series, and ultra black is just further evidence of it.
Mm.
You know,
Superfly is another one of those moments for me. I love Curtis Mayfield. He's one of my like I love that's some good stuff right there.
well, have you seen the movie?
I have, yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
I mean,
he's
I
talking.
know what he's talking about, but like it's still like the
No, 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 no. I get what you're saying.
mm,
So listen, take the boat on the water. History talks with my daughter. My
mm,
son will be my resurrection. Now listen, he said on the world is yours, his son would be his resurrection.
mm,
His son wasn't born yet. He actually ended up having the son. And so he's kind of repeating something from one of his most notable classics and how it's come to pass. Black prophecy. Constantly learning my lessons. I never die. You get the message. I'm gonna say that again. Talks on the boat. Take the boat on the water. History talks with my daughter. My son will be my resurrection. Constantly learning lessons. I never die. You get the message. I live on through my seeds. You see, I'm teaching my daughter the history
hmm.
she needs to know. He literally said, "On the world is yours." My son's life will be my resurrection, born in correction for all the wrong shit I did. He'll live in right direction. He said that in 1994 as a 19-year-old about a son who wasn't born yet.
Man,
So when he's coming right after that, and he's telling you, I'm constantly learning lessons. I never die. You get the message?
that's the resurrection, right? Like that's the
Correction, but that's also the teaching of your daughter, passing the information along. Like,
hmm.
when you die, the people, when you die, the people who love you most are really who help you live on.
Right.
You know, like that's who
Hmm.
you really live on. So
You
he's
live
telling
on
you, like,
through what you have taught them, yeah.
you lived on through what you've taught your kids and what you shared with your kids. I hope you be better than I. Life's precious, two stepping. Sometimes I'm over black. I'm guilty of that.
Mm.
He's being honest. Sometimes I'm over black. Like sometimes I take it too far. This is what I mean about triggering certain people in certain cultures. Cash money with the white tee and the soldier rag. We going ultra black, unapologetically black. The opposite of Doja Cat. Michael Blackson black. Like he follows up the jab with a
Mm.
joke.
Yeah.
That's the writer
Yep.
existing. Yeah. And so this record is beautiful. And one of the beautiful things about it is that you get to see that he's a brilliant writer and not in the complicated sense of things, just in the straight up and down like writer sense of things like a Paul McCartney or a John
Yeah.
Lennon.
I mean, there's the hip hop tradition always, as I understand it anyway, was like set up and punchline, right? I mean, you have set up,
Mhm.
and that's what this is. I mean, you have set up punch, and you just pointed out one like the Doja Cat and the Michael Blackson Black, like that's a set up punchline. It's except it's done in a really forward thinking and incredibly complex way.
Yeah. This is sometimes the best messages, don't have to be like overstated.
Hmm.
Or
It's the
sometimes when
same
you
thing
over
we said about the Stone song, right?
right, same when you overstate it, you can overcomplicate it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, just literally
Say the
listen.
thing.
what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying. Like let it stand right there as it exists, and you'll kind of like hear everything that's going on. Sometimes we are our own worst enemies in this culture with just how we quite frankly like jump on top of artists who just really want to like sing a good song to us.
Hmm.
You know, empower some people. Like both of these songs, and why I love them is that well they're empowering songs
Hmm.
from empowering people.
Yeah.
And you know, Nas has a line on Store Run on King's Disease 2 where he says, mention me with Mick Jagger and Bono like you're
Mhm.
supposed to. And so when you came with the pairing of this without me even like saying anything, I was like, oh, well, that's the mentioning you with Mick Jagger like we're supposed to be doing because
Yeah.
that's who you belong next to.
I
When
made a big deal in the last episode we did about Once a Man, Twice a Child and Neil Young, about wanting to make sure that we're comparing the greats to greats, like to put him, especially Nas, him, who is not somebody who we have discussed both on this show and on According to Hip Hop, that doesn't perhaps get the flowers that he deserves, generally speaking, in the culture. Um,
well, no, you see, and that's the thing. Okay, so I even want to kind of like circle around on that properly. It's like, well, he gets flowers,
mhm,
but what I'm trying to educate people in my culture on is the way that Mick Jagger gets treated,
right.
Paul McCartney treated, David Bowie gets treated, Robert Plant, who we were talking
Mhm,
about earlier. But the way these men get treated is what I'm talking about. And that's not just applicable to Nas. I think, and I've always said this, well, Nas is a great case study and starting place and talking point about all these things because he has the most viable evidence, in my opinion, to be the
right.
greatest MC of all time. So if he suffers any mishaps,
Mhm.
travesties, pitfalls, well, that kind of opens the gamut for everybody else in my mind. And there's some proof to life to that because on the Patreon show that we had today, I've done 3 podcasts today. Right,
Been behind that mic a lot.
right. So
Mm.
one of the things that today's conversation was a legacy conversation about Snoop Dogg and why don't we have Snoop Dogg in our top 10 or 20 list.
Mhm.
And we pretty much just came to, I wouldn't even call it a conclusion, but we pretty much just had epiphany, and I gave a soliloquy of sorts that there's an East Coast bias going on. And if you just look at the music and the songs, well, ain't nobody beating Snoop like best 2025 songs, including Nas. Now, Nas is the superior MC in
Mhm.
the totality of the things that Nas does make him better. But Snoop is a special, special guy. And I feel like even somebody who, because I have like what I would call East Coast lyrical tendencies at
Mhm.
times,
Sure.
maybe has done Snoop a disservice in how I've ranked him. And that's what I mean about giving all of our legends their flowers and their due. It's like,
Mhm.
hold on. And I submitted this today. Well, if we love Dr. Dre so much and think Dr. Dre is the greatest producer of all time, and most of the stuff that makes us feel that way is the stuff with Snoop on it, why don't we talk about Snoop the same way we talk about
You
Dre?
should. You should.
Or we made Mike and I made the Bill Belichick Tom Brady analysis. It's
Hmm.
like, well, how are we gonna call Dre the best and not call Snoop the
Right.
best? But when it's Belichick and Brady, it was like, oh well, best quarterback and best coach,
They're
right?
both. Yeah.
They're both, and so this is what I mean about unpacking things for our legends, and Nas just being a great case study and starting point because
No,
it's
he's
like,
clearly not the only one, but like
right,
it's
well, I'm on some Snoop shit right now where it's like, hold on, Snoop's top 20, and I got people on Twitter right now that's like, nah, he's 50, 35 to 50.
mm-mm.
I'm like, he wrote Doggy Style in the Chronic.
Yeah. I mean, the Chronic has Dre's name on it, but it.
The DMC and Snoop Dogg wrote the Chronic, and he's
Mhm.
literally rapping on half the album, if
Yeah, I was about
not
to
more.
say a lot of and all the most famous songs on there come have Snoop on it. Like that's
That is affirmative.
yeah.
I played Deep Cover today, and just so it's not just a Nas thing.
Mhm.
It's just like it's a how we treat our legends things. It's like, nah, we need to be treating Nas and Snoop and Jay like
And
they
Rakim
deserve.
and like all of them. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they deserve the Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, like Like in our community, Andrew, not by you,
Hmm.
by us, by the black media and publications, by the Black Caucus, by the Boule, like by us.
Hmm.
Like we not supposed to need y'all to fucking big our legends up. Like that ain't part of the deal. You all don't
Hmm.
need us to big Mick Jagger up at
No,
fucking all.
no,
Right.
Mick Jagger doesn't need anybody to do it. He's just,
He's
yeah,
right. I was
he's a,
that's
we call him a made man, right?
right. That's what it is when you're a made man. That's how it's supposed to be. And
Hmm.
so what we're trying to get people in this genre to understand is that, well, you treat made men a little different. Like
Yeah,
none like when a made man's coming through the door and you see him across the street, you open the door when that motherfucker is across the street to
yeah,
let him know that you see him. You let the new
yeah.
artist walk up to the front door and wait to open the door for them. You get what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
No, like Mick Jagger shouldn't have to do anything else artistically for the rest of his life if he doesn't want to. Like
Right.
he's already done, and all the people we named shouldn't. Like the McCartneys and Paul Simons and
And I'm
Joni
not talking
Mitchells and Oz's and all of them.
and I'm not talking about like walking in a place and having people buy you drinks and dinner. I'm
Hmm.
talking about literally like the gravitas that
Yeah,
comes with being canonized as an all-time iconic great artist. There is something that comes with it. It's like
yeah,
Paul McCartney's getting fucking knighted out here
hmm, yeah,
for singing
yeah.
and playing guitar. You feel me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Nas can't
One,
get hot 9-7.
yeah, like no. Like I don't know. Did you have we talked about McCartney going on James Corden or James Corden doing a like the you know who James Corden is, I assume, right? Yeah, and he's one of the for those of you who don't know, he's one of the late night guys. And he does like the car sing-alongs where they drive around and sing the songs or whatever. Like the I
I
don't you know
didn't.
what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about, but I didn't know that part.
There's a
I know.
name for them like but he does it with lots of famous artists.
Right.
He did one in Liverpool with Paul McCartney. The end point of that, like usually in most of these things, they go like do a performance somewhere or whatever. They'll like get out of the car. Like the Foo Fighters one he did, they got out in like a guitar center store and they like played on the drums and whatever. And it was awesome. But um and with McCartney, McCartney rode him around Liverpool and said, "Oh, this is Penny Lane. This is where we wrote the song about," and that kind of thing. Um, and showed him like the house that he grew up in and all that kind of stuff. And then they went to like a pub around the corner from where he grew up, and um, McCartney like this is just like a little tiny bar kind of thing, and he went up there and stuck his head around the curtain and like started playing and like Paul McCartney is what 75-ish,
Ish.
I think. Shit you not, it took like less than 20 minutes for the whole bar to be packed, for the street outside to be packed, for the rooftops across the street to be packed, for like it was like that.
And
Um
Paul McCartney's in the pub. What?
yeah,
What the fuck? What?
I'm down. Yeah.
What? The whole town. And the town came.
Hmm. In a
Right.
heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And that's the kind of thing I think you're talking about. Like it's just
That's what the fuck it's supposed to be.
hmm
I'm not like I'm there's I don't know how to express this other than it's like, well, don't tell me that you can't do this shit because we've had Michael Jackson and Prince. I've watched black people do it.
hmm
Janet too. I've watched
yeah,
black people. Not like we're not capable.
yeah.
Watch us do it.
Stevie Wonder, like yeah.
Stevie Wonder, James Brown. I've
Hmm.
watched us do it. Going crazy for James Brown. You say James Brown around my Aunt Sonia right now, she'll still go crazy. Right now. About to play James Brown. James Brown. Woo! Right now. Love some James Brown. Put some James Brown on. She the same way about George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, Parliament, P Funk.
P
No,
Funk's good stuff, man. Yeah.
soon as, soon as, soon as.
Mhm.
All you got to do is say the word. So it's like, no, it can be done. We just got to start transitioning and understanding,
For hip hop artists too. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
But for black artists who are deserving, it just so happens we're
Mm.
living in a time where a lot of those artists, whether you like it or not, are hip hop artists. Like the
Yeah.
rap artists from the '90s are better than the R&B artists from the '90s. Get over it.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Nas, Tupac, Big, Jay Z, Snoop. Like
Yeah.
you can't name five R&B singers that like in the canon of their genre are bigger than those five guys are in this genre. You can't.
No, R. Kelly's the only one, and he's got
Nasty.
problems for, yeah,
Usher.
exactly. So,
I was thinking Usher,
mm.
Erica Badu.
I was thinking Usher's being later than that, but I guess he's not. But
He's still 90s. No, no, no.
yeah.
Usher's around the same time. He's just younger. Usher's first album's coming out in 1990, 91, 92.
Okay, so he's way
No, no,
older
no.
than.
94, 94, 94,
So
94.
so he's a contemporary with all these guys.
Yeah, technically, he's he's what Michael Jackson was to David
Mm.
Ruffin and Marvin Gaye. It's like, oh no, no, that's my contemporary. It's just a little motherfucker right now.
Yeah, he's just young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just young, but he's right here in the building with me. You know, Marvin Gaye wrote about that,
Mm.
about how he knew Michael was going to be a problem. Like for everybody else that thought they was going to be better. Like
No,
Mike
no.
already think
Mike was
about this.
special when he was a kid.
Mike had Marvin Gaye worried at Marvin Gaye's peak when he was a kid.
Hmm.
Now I'm gonna trust Marvin Gaye's ear.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. Like fuck what everybody else thought. Go read Marvin Gaye's biography. It's like, no, 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 David Ruffin, Michael Jackson. I'm like, man, this motherfucker got an ear.
Hmm. Those two
Yeah.
those two had two of the greatest voices. Oh, three of them really had three of the greatest voices.
I think he brought up like Stevie's songwriting skills and stuff. Like he was
Mm.
honest about the people that was like, yeah, yeah. It's like Stevie is a songwriter and like ballad writer and stuff. You
Mm.
know,
Stevie Wonder is probably the like he's, yeah, as a songwriter, as a
I think
balladeer.
probably he's probably the best songwriter ever in my opinion.
Hmm.
Just if we're just talking about like actual lyrics being written down, if you were to read it out, it could still make you cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No, he and McCartney are the ones that are like the have the melody and the songwriting and the whatever else. Like
right.
those are the two guys that are.
It's the ability to touch you.
Hmm.
That matters. You have to be able to touch people. It's like I tell people, like Prince is a more diverse songwriter than Stevie, but
Hmm.
he can't touch you consistently,
Yeah.
like your heartstrings,
Yeah.
like Stevie does. That's different. That is a gift unto itself too. That has nothing to do with
Yeah.
necessarily instrumentation or musicality or even
Yeah.
your voice. Just some people got it.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yesterday, all my troubles seem so far away. Now it looks as though they're here to stay, but I believe in yes. Like that's not a complicated lyric, but that's like straight
Straight
into your
to
heart.
straight.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things, and we have gotten sort of off Ultra Black, but it's. I mean that it all does fit together, I guess.
Well, not really, because I think the thing that I've been stressing is that you know people like Nas get mentioned with the likes of the people of everybody we just mentioned. We just got done talking about Marvin Gaye, David Ruffin,
Michael
uh,
Jackson.
Michael Jackson, James Brown, Parliament. Like no, 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 Paul McCartney. No, that's exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. Actually,
Hmm.
that's the type of like when we're talking about somebody at Nas's stature. That's where the discourse is supposed to go to musically if we're stepping outside of his genre. The
Hmm.
comp, Mick Jagger, Paul McCartney,
Hmm.
Stevie Wonder, Prince, Michael. No, those are his musical comps outside of his
Right.
genre. Look at him inside of his genre. He is that. And so what we actually just did, although it seems kind of sidebar, it's kind of what's a little bit more necessary. Like when people are having a conversation, and I've heard older people do this now, and now I
Mm.
understand why when they say that they miss the real time of rock and roll that they grew up on. Well, they're talking about all this music that you've been giving them. They're talking
Mm.
about this Led Zeppelin time, this Rolling Stones time,
Hmm.
this Beatles time. They're talking about like that for a reason. So when I'm pulling up and I'm talking about Nas and Snoop for a reason, I'm not pulling that from somewhere. There's a reason. It's the
Hmm.
same thing. The same thing.
Yeah.